installed automatic weather stations in Chapalungu constituency. We will forward to address this issue, and we will not allow our communities to be aggrieved. Madam Speaker, the third question was the steps the ministry intends to take to address the concern raised by the affected residents. Honorable Madam Speaker, on the last question, allow me from the onset to commit and to state our commitment towards protecting the interests of our local communities. To this end, in addressing the concerns of the affected residents, I commit to do a follow-up with the Ministry of Water and its agency, the Water Resource Authority, to ascertain the obstruction of water from both River Amalo and River Nyangores, as mentioned. And we will report back to this House in very, very due course within 2 weeks. Further, going forward, we hope that by the enactment of the meteorological bill, which is before the House, the meteorological department will have the powers to regulate weather-related activities in the country. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Before I allow one interjection and then the owner of the question to confirm whether he's satisfied with the answer by the Cabinet Secretary, allow me first to welcome very special guests who are seated in the Speaker's Gallery from Kisii County. Mr. Moega Onchweri, Mrs. Moega, Wakili Wycliffe Moega, and for Claire Ombati. And I think I'll allow the Honorable Osoro, Sylvanus Osoro, to welcome them on behalf of the National Assembly. He will explain.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I had to make this very, very special request, which is again unprecedented in this House, to welcome very, very special guests to me, because Mr. Moenga Onchweri picked me from the streets and took me to school upon the demise of my parents. This is a very special guest to me. It's a very emotional thing to me, because when he actually came where somebody had given me a small casual job of welding after I had dropped out of school, he picked me and decided to take me to school, back to school, educated me until I finished. And ironically, I mean, one thing that is very special, Honorable Speaker, is that this is the first time that Mr. Moenga is stepping his feet in Parliament at 78 years old. And when I made a request to this House, Honorable Speaker, and to the leadership of this House, they agreed to have them sit there so that they see what we do in this House and to see their product. But again, on the flip side, Honorable Speaker, I got surprised today when I welcomed Mr. Moenga that he also knows the Honorable Member for Kisii County, the Honorable Doris Donya Aburi. He also educated Honorable Donya Aburi, because they actually happen to come from, they happen to come also from the same village. So he's a very, very special person. His dream to become a member of Parliament years back did not materialize for Nyaribari Chache constituency, but I've just told him that by me being member of Parliament and Honorable Aburi member of Parliament is actually a double victory. So, and that is why I made this very special request. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
Okay, thank you. Yes, the Honorable Donya Deris will give you 3 minutes.
Madam Speaker, the beauty of Samaritans. I'm always talkative, but when I look at them, today I'm very humble. I've eaten a lot of vegetables, because parents and Samaritans are the best thing that God can give. You can even attest, Honorable Soro, you can think he was reading the Bible. He's also calm, because the parents are there. See what the parents, Madam Speaker, have done to us. Today we can't even Gachagua'S anybody. We are just good. We are very obedient. And please, honorable members, M-Pesa your parents, please. Parents believe girls are the one who give them food, who send them M-Pesa, unlike the boys. Now we change it, honorable members, the male. Please, those who are here today, send your mom some M-Pesa and make it 10,000 and above. Even CS, Honorable Duale, I will come for 100,000 from you. I send to my mother. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Okay, now thank you for the digression. I think we can proceed. I'll give one honorable member to add their question. Honorable Zamzam, member for Mombasa. And then we will go back to the member for Chepalungu to confirm if you're satisfied with the answer.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika, na mimi niweze kumshukuru mzee kwa kuweza, mzee Mwenga, kwa kuweza kulea hawa vijana wawili. Leo ni wabunge ambao sisi tunawacelebrate hapa ndani ya hili bunge. Na mimi imenikumbusha sana mzee marehemu Yusuf Haji, na yeye pia aliweza kunisomesha, na ndio maana mnaona jambo lolote likija hapa la Nurdin Haji, yule ni ndugu yangu, lazima nitampigia upatu. Na sisi ambao tumetoka katika familia maskini, Mheshimiwa Spika, tukasomeshwa, tukanyanyuliwa na wale ambao wanatuonea huruma. Siku zote sisi huwa na huruma, na ndio maana waona turudi kwenye jamii na tuzidisha upendo kwa wale ambao hawawezi kujimudu katika masomo, na sisi pia tuweze kuwasaidia. Mheshimiwa Spika, nafikiri vile nimepata fursa kabisa nimuulize waziri wa mazingara, na niweze kwanza kumpongeza kuja katika bunge. Asante sana bwana waziri, tunakushukuru sana. Mimi nilikuwa nataka kuuliza, umesema kuwa kuna haya mambo ya mazingara ya sewage na nini ni mambo ya county, lakini hata tukiangalia Mombasa county, Mheshimiwa waziri, ukiangalia pale Chuda, maji taka sewage inaingia ndani ya bahari, na imekaa miaka mingi sana. Wale watoto ambao wanakaa kule katika sehemu zile za slums wanaenda wakiogelea kule. Mheshimiwa Spika, ni kwa sababu watu wamejenga majumba bila kuangalia njia zao za sewage zitakwenda vipi, zote wamezielekeza kwenye bahari. Mheshimiwa waziri, kwa hiyo mimi nakuomba kama unaweza kulifuatilia. Umesema ni account, lakini mimi nakusihi, maana yake wakati mwingine barua ikitoka kwa waziri, pengine jambo laweza likafuatiliwa likafanywa kwa wepesi. Mheshimiwa waziri, kisha nauliza Mheshimiwa waziri, unapanda miti ya matunda. Mimi kama mama Mombasa County nimezunguka nikaangalia, miti ya nazi imekuwa chache sana ndani ya pwani, na kuomba kama mama Mombasa utuletee miche ya nazi ili tuweze kupanda kama matunda, na miche ya maembe iwe ni chakula na pia itaweza kuleta mvua. Asante sana Mheshimiwa waziri.
Asante. Before I allow the Cabinet Secretary to respond to her brief question, let me allow the member for Chepalungu. I think Honorable Mugambi, I think the Speaker already ruled on this, that it will be one rider question and then back to the owner of the question.
It's okay. Thank you, Speaker. While I appreciate the response from the CS, I would like to make him aware that it's also nice for him and his team to visit these particular villages that I talked about, because I'm the member of parliament and I know what happens. In a particular situation, I was attending a funeral in a village called Kabalwa. It was raining at Sigor town, but upon reaching Kapalwa, it was dry, or it was dust everywhere. And one MC by the name Henry from Kabalwa village really challenged me that whenever there is rainfall, whenever they see signs of rain from these particular villages that I mentioned in this particular question, the person who does irrigation or farming from the neighboring village, these particular companies, he told me in black and white that he normally comes out, shoots the cloud. Those who are his local words. He simply told me that he normally comes out, shoots the cloud, and the next moment there is no rain in these particular villages. That's why, as a member, I took it upon myself to raise the question on their behalf. And equally, it is worrying to the effect that this particular data that you gave out, that these particular villages have seen an improvement in rainfall, it is totally wrong. I want to say this particular data is wrong as far as I am concerned, because I know these particular villages. The only time that these villages have received rainfall is when the entire country is receiving heavy rainfall. That is almost 1 year ago. But in normal situations where we see patterns of rain, these particular villages that I've mentioned here don't receive any volume or any rainfall at all. So while I appreciate you, I really want to encourage the ministry that you lead now to go back to these villages, get real information, and come back with proper data that will guide what you will do as a ministry, so that we see these particular villages benefiting from the rainfall, because it's dry. It's really dry when there is no heavy rainfall from the country. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you. Honorable Cabinet Secretary, do you have a rejoinder?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. To the member for Chapalungu, Chapalungu is a very great constituency led by a great man called Isaac Ruto, who I have a lot of respect for. I want to assure you, after I leave here, please give me your number when you are ready. The Kenya Meteorological Director General and all our researchers will go with you, visit with you all the villages. We work for the people of Kenya, and they will come back to us. So you tell me when you are ready, because I want you to be there. So that, secondly, to my sister, Zamzam, Honorable Zamzam, I agree with you. I'll talk about this matter in a later question that Honorable TJ Kajuang has raised. How sewer in our counties are dysfunctional, how there's poor management of the sewer manholes, how there's illegal dumping on our water bodies, the seas, the rivers. So I think when I reach that question, Madam Speaker, I think I'll give a more comprehensive statement on the position countrywide. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Honorable members, let's move to our third question, number 106 of 2024, by the Honorable Timothy Wanyonyi, member for Westlands.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I want to congratulate the Minister for his new assignment in the Ministry of Environment, because the Ministry of Environment, Madam Speaker, all over the world is now the in thing. Everybody's talking about climate change. Everybody's looking at how we can rescue our planet. And I'm sure Honorable Tuale is up to the task. And we know he has passion for anything he does. So, Madam Speaker, allow me to ask my question. Question number 106 of 2024 to the Cabinet Secretary for Environment, Climate Change, and Forestry. Could the Cabinet Secretary explain the reasons behind the depletion of rivers, including the number of permanent rivers that have dried up in the country over the past 4 years, and the plans by the ministry to address and mitigate the situations? Question 2, enumerate the entities and groups that discharge their affluent in the rivers, along with the number of private dams constructed in the last 2 years, and the policy statement outlining the penalties imposed on such entities for negative environmental actions. Number 3, disclose the policy statement allowing the cultivation and re-entry of communities into forested areas, specifying the regions and roadmap for such action and the acreage likely to be affected by the forest, per forest. Question 4, outline the measures put in place to reclaim, safeguard, and sustain all riparian areas and vulnerable ecosystems within the country. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Cabinet Secretary, you may proceed.
Honorable Madam Speaker, before Honorable Zamzam walks out, there's a question that she asked, I have forgotten, on the coconut trees. I want to confirm that I am here with the CEO of Kefri. Kefri and Carlo have developed a hybrid that is shorter and faster growing coconut trees. They are available in Mutwapa, they are available in Gede, in Kilifi, and we are ready. And also, Madam Deputy Speaker, the 15 billion tree growing initiative of President William Ruto in his strategy to restore our ecosystem, 30% of those seedlings are fruit trees. And I really want to ask members of parliament to help that strategy, take charge of the 30%, give to our rural women in our constituencies, our villages, and that will even first restore our ecosystem, our forest cover, and then help reduce poverty. Madam Speaker, coming back to the question by Honorable Tim Wanyonyi, a man I have respect for and has represented the people with disability in this House for a number of parliaments, is that it was the issue of river depletion is a critical concern that is on this government's agenda. Under the leadership of His Excellency the President, the government has made a concerted effort to address the causes, recognizing their far-reaching impacts on water resources, on the livelihoods of our people, and the future of our nation. Allow me to elaborate the main causes of this challenge, highlighting very few because the document I have provided to Honorable Wanyonyi and to the Office of the Clerk. One of it is deforestation and degradation of water catchment areas in very critical water catchment areas like the Mao Forest Complex, the Aberdare Ranges, Mount Kenya Forest, and all this has led to a significant reduction in the ability of these forests to regulate our river flow. For instance, rivers such as the Mara, the Sondu, and Njoro, which originate from the Mao Forest, have experienced decreased water levels due to deforestation, which I will again later address in another subsequent question. Two, the other thing that has affected our rivers is prolonged drought and erratic rainfall patterns due to climate change. Climate change is the current currency in the world. It is there, we must face it. You have seen the floods in Nairobi, you have seen the drought, you have seen the landslides. Climate change is a reality. And this has reduced river recharge and flow. Rivers like Athi River, Wasonyiro North River, which support a very critical ecosystem, support our communities, pastoralists, for water, their livestock, and for people, are among those which have been affected by this erratic and prolonged drought. And these changes have significantly led to significant reduction in water availability across the country. There is a third one is of over-abstraction and unsustainable water use for agriculture, for domestic use, and for industrial use is another big challenge. I want to give the example of Wasonyiro River, which flows through the arid and semi-arid areas. It has seen its water levels drop drastically due to excessive irrigation in the upstream areas. Similarly, Athi River is heavily tapped for irrigation and industrial use, contributing to what the member is saying, reduced flow downstream. Encroachment and human activity within our riparian areas is another factor that reduces the flow of our rivers. This has contributed to the degradation of the river ecosystem. The construction, agriculture, and urban development along the rivers like Nairobi River and other rivers have not only reduced their flow, but have also increased the pollution level. Madam Speaker, there is no Nairobi River. What we have in Nairobi River is sewage, is raw sewage, is polluted. And I want to assure you, speaking on behalf of President William Ruto, Nairobi River and all other urban rivers will not be the same again. The same river of London, Madam Speaker, at one time was a sludge. I am ready as a minister to take the prize. The president has given me all the powers. And I want the leadership of Nairobi County to work with us. We've started yesterday with the climate works. We will change Nairobi River. It will become blue, and the people around Nairobi River and all of us will walk there. Pollution is another issue that's affecting our rivers. Pollution from industrial, from agriculture, from domestic sources, all these have degraded our rivers. The Nairobi River is a perfect example of high pollution due to untreated industrial waste, sewage, and plastic pollution, further straining its ability to sustain constant flow of water, Mr. Speaker. Lastly, Honorable Speaker, poor agricultural practices, such as monocropping and overgrazing, have led to soil erosion and siltation in many of the rivers. The Tana River, for example, the Kenyan largest river, is affected by siltation caused by deforestation and land degradation in its upper catchment. This reduces the river's capacity to hold water, leading to flooding during heavy rains. Go to Garissa County, go to Tana River, go to Lamu. As the river is entering the sea, the kind of siltation that you'll find on Sabaki Bridge. Honorable Speaker, allow me now also to highlight what mitigation measures is the ministry putting. One, we want to restore our water towers at the onset. The ministry is implementing the ambitious 15 billion tree growing presidential initiative to restore all our degraded ecosystem, including the water catchment areas, including the Mau Forest Complex, Mount Kenya Forest, Mount Elgon, Charangani, Abadeas. Restoration and forest protection will enhance water infiltration and will reduce service runoff, thus contributing to river restoration, in which Honorable team has asked. Mr. Speaker, to address climate change, the ministry has developed the third National Climate Change Action Plan 3, which was launched during the inaugural First African Climate Summit held in Nairobi in September 2023 by President William Ruto. And he today is the chair of African Climate Heads of State and Government. That coordinating of that national plan into a sectoral sectors plans into many ministries and counties for implementation. For example, the Ministry of Agriculture is implementing what we call climate smart agriculture and other adaptation strategies to enhance water conservation. Mr. Speaker, finally, the ministry, through the National Environmental Management Authority, NEMA, we have enforced the protection of the riparian zones by removing illegal structures and settlements. This effort is very critical in ensuring that the rivers have adequate space to flow and recharge naturally. For example, the riparian cleanup and protection campaign along Nairobi rivers are ongoing, and it has started yesterday with the 10,000 young people under the Climate Works program that is initiated by our government. In another month, we will add about another 10,000. Nairobi will have 20,000. Then we go to the other 5 cities, and by December, 139,000 young people in all our 47 counties and constituencies will be engaged. It's not a choice. Climate change is real, and we must have clear policies for climate mitigation and adaptation as a country. Mr. Speaker, Honorable Tim Wanyonyi also sought our indulgence to enumerate the entities that discharge effluent in the rivers and the policy statement outlining. Mr. Speaker, when I went to that ministry, what I saw, I can't believe it. The people who pollute Nairobi rivers is not the informal settlements. The people who produce garbage are not in the informal settlements. They are found in the middle class. Me and you. Me and the member sitting here. The people who live in the informal settlements, what they cook is so little that they finish. The people who have a lot of garbage at their homes is the middle class in Kenya. So the informal settlements, pollution percentage is less than 1%. So who pollutes the Nairobi River? NEMA has mapped out over 101 industries, factories, apartments, slaughterhouses that discharge their effluent to Nairobi rivers. And the Speaker, I want to confirm, NEMA Director General is sitting here. He has no choice. He must comply with the law and the regulation passed by this House. He has already given them what is called restoration order. And on Monday, I'm meeting Kenya Private Sector Alliance, I'm meeting Kenya Association of Manufacturers, and I will tell them, if you are discharging effluent to Nairobi River, you either close and pack, or you find how you deal with that effluent in accordance with the MCA Act passed by this House. Mr. Speaker, NEMA, as I said, out of the 145 facilities and factories and slaughterhouses and apartments mapped out, 101 facilities have been listed by NEMA as having compliance issues as attached list, and that you'll find in Annex 1. NEMA has also issued restoration order to all the non-compliant facilities to ensure that they set up effluent treatment plants and they treat their waste water to meet the national standards under the Environmental Management and Coordination Water Quality Regulations 2006, passed by this House before discharge. The last question, Mr. Speaker, of Honorable Wanyonyi was to disclose the policy statement. Mr. Speaker, it's noteworthy that non-residential cultivation in public forest is governed by the Forest Conservation and the Management Act of 2016, passed by this House. This act establishes the Kenya Forest Service and vested it with a mandate to develop and sustainably manage, including conservation and rational utilization of all forest resources for the country's socio-economic development and our other connected purposes. Honorable Speaker, Section 48, 49, and 50 of that Act provide guidelines for community participation in forest conservation and management. Under these provisions, the Kenya Forest Service issued guidelines for non-residential cultivation and engage local communities. You cannot be in our forest as residential. Through the Community Forest Association, there are regulations where you can go cultivate, you can go graze in consultation with the Kenya Forest Service. But non-residential cultivation or residential cultivation, we will not allow. Our communities do a lot. They work with the Kenya Forest. Subsidiary legislation in forest, Honorable Speaker, most of Section 58, 1 and 2, community forest associations are granted the opportunity to engage in non-residential cultivation. This allows them to cultivate crops while caring for established trees on the same land and the protection of our forests for 3 years. In 2020, Mr. Speaker, operational guidelines for implementing the plantation establishment and livelihood improvement scheme, known as Trees First Guidelines, was put in place, and this was to enhance efficiency and effectiveness of managing our forest plantation. Honorable Speaker, allow me also now to highlight forest cultivation in Kenya faces several challenges, despite the framework and the efforts that the law that this House has put in place. We have got forest degradation due to unsustainable cultivation practice, poor management, and lack of enforcement have led to deforestation in some of our areas. I am here with the Chief Forest Conservator, and we have agreed in principle that our rangers, our foresters, it will not be business as usual. We must, all of us, from the top to our citizens, we must protect our ecosystem, we must protect our biodiversity. Enforcement is a key issue, Mr. Speaker, because KFS is really underfunded, and I'm sure the Committee of Environment will look into that when our physical space improves, Mr. Speaker. Population pressure and conflicts over land use has caused more forest encroachment. And finally, Mr. Speaker, communities involved in our engagement with Kenya Forest Service do not follow sustainable farming practices, which sometimes can lead to soil degradation, loss of biodiversity, and ecosystem disruption. Mr. Speaker, the other long issue that I need to address, which I've given to Honorable Wanyonyi, because he had many questions, was the challenges and how to improve forest conservation and cultivation. The ministry has intensified its efforts to enforce forest conservation laws, mainly through Forest Conservation and Management Act that this House passed in 2016. The ministry has recruited more than 2,664 forest rangers to bolster our enforcement and monitoring activities across all forested areas, increasing funding for the Kenya Forest Service, and we want to thank the President. In all subsequent government, it is President William Ruto's tenure that over 2,600 forest rangers were recruited. The ministry has also reviewed the three first guidelines to make them more adaptive to our emerging challenges, such as the land use conflict, climate change, and invasive species management. The ministry is also working closely with the Community Forest Association to promote sustainable farming practice. And lastly, we want to ensure compliance with the law, and the ministry has introduced very strict monitoring mechanism, including regular inspection of forest stations, and these inspections ensure that cultivation's activities are aligned with sustainable forest management and conservation guidelines. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I will give the first bite to the Honorable KJ and then go back to Honorable Wanyonyi, the questioner. Proceed, Honorable KJ.
Mr. Speaker, I thank you. And allow me to start by saying that we are happy to have Waziri Duale in the House. It's deja vu when we hear his voice come across through the public address system. We feel like he's seated right there as a leader of majority, one of the better performing leaders of majority that the history of this parliament has known. Now, being a leader of majority, Honorable Duale understands that this parliament never moves in vain. And that's why I rise to ask about the progress of the implementation of a motion that was brought to this House by myself, but was backed by members and passed. And when it was passed by members, then it ceased being my motion. It became a motion of this House. And because this House never legislates in vain, I would like to know, in connection to the reply that he's giving my neighbor, Honorable Tim Wanyonyi, in Nairobi City, we do not have space to plant trees. We do not have shambas. We do not have forests. So the motion was seeking to have the ministry implement tree planting along roadsides and along road reserves. This country constructs in excess of 600 kilometers of road per annum. These roadsides, if they became sites for tree planting, then Nairobi will get its fair share of the bite at the cherry in populating trees in this country. And so the target that the ministry has, Nairobi will be assisting in that target by planting trees along roadsides and road reserves. And this is not uncommon, Mr. Speaker, because previously, the Honorable Beatrice Elachi neighbors me. She will tell you that some roads that we share, when we were growing up, a road like James Gishuru, all the way from Wayakiwe to Dagoretti Corner, used to have a canopy of trees on both sides of the road. And during bloom season, during the jacaranda tree bloom season, it would be the most beautiful boulevard with purple flowers along that tree. Because, Mr. Speaker, when a road gets a tree canopy, it stops being a road, it becomes a boulevard.
KJ, it's a question time.
The question is...
The chair has given you some leeway so that you can build on your question, but please ask the question.
Yes, sir. Yes. Mr. Speaker, I do oblige, and the question is, what is the state of implementation on the motion that was passed by this House on the tree planting along roadsides and along road reserves in this republic? I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Fair enough. Tim Wanyonyi, you can ask your question, and then the minister the cabinet secretary will answer them together. Proceed, the Honorable Wanyonyi. Can you give him the mic, please?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First, I want to appreciate the answer that the minister has given, very elaborate, and I know he means the things he has said, especially, Mr. Speaker, about the Nairobi River that is so polluted, and looking forward, Honorable Duale, that we, as leadership of Nairobi, we are ready to join you, to work with you, to reclaim these rivers. Nairobi River never dries up. It runs throughout the year. And if it is saved, Mr. Speaker, it will even be giving people who live along that river fresh water and many other things to use it. So we look forward to Honorable Duale for that implementation. And secondly, my other comment, there is a riparian area just outside Westgate Mall.